Ice Cube had Friday. Julia Louis-Dreyfus has Tuesday. This isn't going to become a franchise, although Tuesday after next would be, or next Tuesday, I could see it happening. This could be a franchise. Anyway, uh, what's up? Welcome back. I'm John Sark from ActionMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. And yes, of course, this is a review of Tuesday. This is an A24 film. I feel like that's really all I need to say at this point. I don't even really need to credit anybody. All you have to do really is just say something is A24 and people will come. There's like a whole cult of A24 people. You can put A24 on literally anything. I think A24 should pick up the most non-A24 film they possibly could and just see what happens. You know, be like, guys, we're releasing the next Paw Patrol movie. A24. Uh, okay. You know, A24 presents My Little Pony. How much do you love us? So, it does have audio description by Deluxe, narrated by Nicole Sanzarella. This is on my list. I have a kind of a growing list. I have a list that I'm gonna have a hard time trimming down. It's already got like 50. It's about like 50. It's between like 40 and 50 titles of titles that I thought this year. Granted, I've seen over 130, so perspective. Of titles that I actually thought were like above average / exceptional audio description this year, and I put this on the list. And I will tell you why in this review. So, what is this film about? And how do I not spoil it? Oh God. You know what? We're gonna need to do some spoilers here because chances are you know very little about Tuesday. Now, Tuesday was a film that was picked up that floated around in film festivals in 2023. So, A24 kind of sat on this film. There was a question as to whether or not they would release it last year, whether or not it would be in any sort of contention at last year's Oscars. Didn't happen. They pushed it to this year. This is obviously not an Oscar contender for them, which is really sad because I looked at this film and I was like, but then again, I also see kind of the reaction from people. It seems very mid, which I'm thinking like, yeah, I know I'm blind, but like this stuff that's being described to me. I'm like, what production design, guys? I mean, there's some stuff here that really reminds me of like what Michel Gondry was doing with his films. And this is like a directorial debut. So there's some stuff here that really just kind of um, intrigued me. And I thought the audio description described fairly well. And I don't fully understand why people are just like, it's all right. It was good. I liked it. It's fine. It's kind of what it feels like this film is. It's like, it's fine. It's whatever. Uh, all right. I liked it a little bit more than you. Um, Last year, Julia Louis-Dreyfus was lightly in the Oscar conversation for about 5 minutes for You Hurt My Feelings. This year, she'll be lightly in the conversation for 5 minutes for this film. She's just going to keep skirting by those Oscar nominations. I'm going to say some stuff that is spoilery, but I will not spoil the whole film. It's like, I don't know what the trailers are showing you for this film, but there's some stuff that I can't not say I could just never tell you what the film is about and just tell me like, I liked Tuesday, it's over, done, A-, moving on. Just fuck you, figure out what it is for yourself. You know, I could do that, but I need to be able to give you like some sort of short description at the bare minimum. So, unfortunately, this is what the film is actually about. So, the film Tuesday is a young girl who is facing an illness. I'm treading as lightly here as I can. Um, and she has a mother played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and she also has a nurse that has substantially less screen time than Julia Louis-Dreyfus. But it's a very small cast. It mostly takes place inside this apartment where they keep coming in and out to try to make sure that this daughter who has this illness is taken care of. And the mother is also going through sort of like that coping stage of figuring out, my daughter is sick. What do I do? I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to care for her. Am I doing the right thing? All that kind of stuff. And she's struggling with all of that. And so we see sort of that being told simultaneously at the same time as Tuesday. There's also something is happening. There's some creature that's breathing heavily that we don't see right away until it's revealed later on as being a macaw parrot. And this macaw parrot finds its way to Tuesday. And what this macaw is, and why, and it develops this really sort of interesting bond with Tuesday, because it seems to, for whatever reason, because Tuesday kind of sees that it's in a little bit of distress and sort of cares for it, not fully knowing or understanding what it is. Kind of revives it a little bit and talks to it and is nice to it and maybe shows it some kindness that hasn't really ever been shown before. But the macaw ends up being deaf. And in a weird way, this film plays a little bit with the ideas behind like movies like Death Takes a Holiday. There's a little bit of that here. There are pieces of films that you will have seen before, ideas of, having this conversation with death, or maybe death not taking lives for a while and what that would look like. It has ideas that appear in other things that are kind of thrown together, but death kind of develops this understanding / bond relationship with Tuesday. And when the mother realizes what the bird is, reacts, and the film kind of goes from there. And that's as much as I'll tell you. But you have to at least understand what the setup is, in order to sort of know whether or not you want to see it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want somebody to like walk into this film who is going through grief or loss themselves, and then this be the wrong film for them. So yeah, if you're somebody who is experiencing that, sometimes it's like cathartic to see it and to be able to go through it, which is something that I love about Ghostlight, the movie, which is still currently my favorite film of 2024, as of me doing this recording of this review, was the fact that it explored that. It explored how people work through their shit and what art can have in that process, even when you're not an artist. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just sort of like, you could have made Ghostlight about painting and about handing somebody a brush for the first time, and I feel like there's a movie there. So this could be that for somebody. Maybe somebody needs to work through something, so they watch this. But also at the same time, this could be a very wrong movie for somebody for the exact same reasons, because somebody isn't at that place where they can comprehend or go through this. So it's important for people to understand that this is about a girl who's dying, and whether or not that happens or what happens to her or whatever, that's all spoiler, and I'm not going to get into that. But it's this thing that looms heavy over the whole film, and there's an actual, like, I can't say personification, animalification, is that a thing? Animalification of death, birdification, parrotification of death, words we haven't used yet. I don't know if death has ever been parrotified before, but it is now. And he has the ability, so because he's death, and he's supernatural. He has the ability to sort of like grow and shrink in size, which is one of those things that they do kind of really well. And the way that he plays with his feathers, it's described as well as it possibly could be. The way that he like lifts his wings or ruffles his feathers or whatever. And I was thinking like, this is a really good bird. You know, the one thing I wanted to see, and this is, I always admit, is I'm sharing my blindness, my blind shit with you. If you haven't followed my channel for too long, yeah, you still will see, and now I can't. I really wanted to know how well done this bird is in terms of visual effects, because I think maybe that would be why some people are hesitant on Tuesdays. It's like, you really got to nail the bird, because this bird has so much personality to it. And I mean, it's talking, you know, it's ruffling, it's using its wings as sort of like being able to wave, and because it doesn't really have arms. So, that was something where I was like, it's it's the same thing that I kind of go through every time I watch a biopic, because the reality is like I can watch the biopic and I can listen to somebody and I can hear them nail the voice, but from a sided perspective, it's always about like, well, how much do they actually look like the person? That's the thing, which is why like Gary Oldman wears like 200 pounds of makeup on his face in Darkest Hour, you know, so that he can be this uncanny representation of Winston Churchill. Um, you wouldn't necessarily think that, you know, you wouldn't be like, oh my God, Gary Oldman, of course, because I always think of Winston Churchill. But no, what he does is he's a great actor, and then he wears a fuck ton of makeup to pull that off, and then we gave him an Oscar for it. So, um, yeah, I don't. It's one of those things that I'll never really truly have the answer on. Is how good is this bird? So I'm just kind of relying on the fact what kind of vibes did the bird give me? What kind of vibes did I get off the audio description? Did I like the film? I like the film. It's a directorial debut. This is a film that has like all this BFI lottery stuff at the beginning to let you know that basically this film won the national lottery over in Great Britain, and that's how it was funded. Um, which may explain sort of like the uniqueness, the amalgamation of accents, and why everybody sort of sounds completely different than everybody else. It's a weird thing where you're like, wait a minute, why does the daughter have an accent but mom doesn't? You know, they don't necessarily answer every single question, but I don't think this is one of those movies where you do, or where you have to. It's a conversation piece. It's a film about a very specific topic. It's a film about death. It's a film about coping. It's a film about grief. It's a film about overcoming grief. It's a film about finding a path forward, coming to terms with pending death, all of that kind of stuff. It's not really about the extraneous things of like, how did we get here? You know, where we don't need tons of exposition, where it was like, you know, where we sit down and be like, well, your father left when you were 5, and I've been left here all alone. I used to be a school teacher, but you know, then we had to fly from Kansas out here to London, where you picked up an accent as a baby, and now we're back here in you know, Toronto, and this bird is here, and he found us and flew to your vacation spot in Puerto Rico. I don't need that. It's just kind of like most of this takes place inside this apartment. So you just really don't need that. It's just really kind of it's a high concept film, but it's also a very simple concept that we've seen before. And it's taken it takes its kind of own journey, and that's what I liked about it, is instead of just feeling like a retread of something like Death Takes a Holiday, it really actually finds its own quirky way of existing and being like, okay, so this is why I exist, is because my director had a clear vision for uh changing this dynamic up, for taking what we've seen before and making it feel like you haven't seen this before. So I really enjoyed Tuesday. I really enjoyed Julia Louis-Dreyfus's performance. The girl who played Tuesday is fine. She mostly just has to act sick and morose. I wish she had more levels to her, but I understand when you are playing somebody like that, that you kind of just are, you know what I'm saying? Like, you really only have one level, and it's, I'm tired. um, and the parrot is voiced, the macaw is voiced very interestingly by, it sounds like Spanish Idris Elba. That's the best way I can describe this dude's voice. Is it sounds like if Idris Elba picked up a hint of a Spanish accent, and I was intrigued. I was like, ooh, it's not quite Javier Bardem, you know, but it's adjacent. It's adjacent to Javier. It's deeper, like Idris. It's a little bit deeper. It's kind of like when Javier tried to make his voice lower so that he could be Triton, but it kind of comes across as being like, like he didn't quite pull it off. Idris has like that sort of a booming voice when he wants to down there. Um, and it's when it gets down there, then you add a little bit of Latino voice, and I'm not gonna do it because that's racist. But just imagine it. And I was like, oh, this is a cool voice. I like this dude's voice. Um, so yeah, great voice casting for the macaw. I thought very sort of uh, what do I want to say? Regal. There was a regality to it, like Mufasa. You know what I'm saying? Like it felt. It wasn't. It's not scary. You know what I'm saying? They didn't make that scary. But it's like, hello, I'm death, and you're like, oh fuck me. Um, it was just like, it felt very like all things are connected in the great circle of life. Tuesday. um. Anyway. Yes, I liked it, and it's a quirky film. It's not necessarily a comedy, but it's also not necessarily not a comedy. It has some stuff where you might giggle, but it also deals with some really heavy topics. And I love that it tackles them head on. And it feels very much like a three-act structure film where you can clearly see this is the first act, this is the second act, and this is the third act. So, like in the third act, I really love the conversations that they were having in that. Um, that's where Julia really gets a chance to shine, and she has some conversations with the macaw, and uh, it's almost like, yeah, we don't get to see a fourth act. There's never going to be a sequel to this, but the conversation is so rewarding that it's like, I know. You know what I'm saying? Like in my head, I know what the fourth act looks like. I have that answer. I know what that fourth act looks like. So, um, yeah, I like this. This is exactly the kind of thing that A24 loves to pick up. It's very artsy. It's very edgy and pushy, and has a voice and has something to say. It's coming your first time to film director. It's not going to be something that pleases everybody. I just wish it was pleasing a little bit more people. I wish it wasn't like in the sixes on IMDb, and I wish it had a slightly higher Metacritic score than like it sounds like a 70 something. If I could bump all those numbers up by like a little bit, like 80s in Metacritic and maybe like a 7 something on, I'd feel like that trends more for this movie. Um, but I enjoyed it. So audio description, yeah, there are characters that grow and shrink in this, and it has to deal with that. Plus, the description of the parrot I thought was really well done, which is one of the reasons why I thought, why I really like the audio description, why it's on my list for this year. I thought Nicole's narration was really well done. Very nice vocal performance from her. There's also some stuff early on when you don't know it's a macaw. The way we're first introduced to him is sort of almost like first person perspective. So I thought the way that his sort of like bleary eyed introduction to the world, where he's like, I don't even know what the fuck I'm doing here. You know, it felt very, very much like, I don't know, what is this? What is life? And we, you know, you don't know what kind of creature is coming or what But I thought the description was really good from his perspective of just sort of like fading in and out of things. And yeah, I liked it. I like the script a lot, and it's very weird. It's a very weird film, but it asks some big questions, and it has a lot to do with anxiety too. I should mention that it like in dealing with anxiety and breathing and panic attacks. And it's weird in a film about death that you would have such profound thoughts on panic attacks, you know, and anxiety. So yeah, and how those affect us and the kind of feelings that they give us. So I think this is a hell of a debut. And I think this film is destined for at least an Independent Spirit Award somewhere. If we don't nominate this at this Independent Spirit Awards, I'm just gonna be like, what are we doing? How how do you take a voice like this and just be like, no? I mean, like it's a first time feature, it's big questions. I know we don't. I don't think we have a production design award, but I was like production design. I would think alone. I mean, you've got a bird that grows and shrinks all the time, and there's other stuff that grows and shrinks too. So, uh, yeah. Anyway, check Tuesday out if it sounds like something you want. So I'm giving. I already said Tuesday. I'm giving an A minus. Like I could have tapped out earlier and just been like, whatever, and just not told you anything about the film, but it's not that kind of film where you feel where it's like, oh, please go into this knowing as little as humanly possible, like Abigail, where I'm like, just don't get out of this review. I liked it, go see it. Abigail should be seen by people who know nothing. This is less so of that. So anyway, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I will see you guys on the other side.